Welcome back, everyone. This is our final mini lecture in Chapter 6 for Introductory Microbiology. And in this mini lecture, we're going to be talking about the study of bacterial growth, why we study it, why it's important to know what happens, and what factors affect bacterial growth, and then how we use that information to our benefit. There are 4 learning outcomes for this mini lecture. First, name the steps of cell division used by most bacteria. Second, understand exponential growth of bacteria. Third, identify and describe the 4 phases of growth in a bacterial growth curve. And 4, name ways that we can analyze amounts or count bacterial cells. So let's first start with how bacteria grow, how we produce more. Bacteria grow and reproduce through a process called binary fission, where one cell becomes 2 cells. And the way that this happens is that we start with one cell, typically a young cell, and that cell goes through the normal growth processes of a cell. And once it reaches a certain size, it's going to duplicate its chromosome and make 2 copies. Each copy of DNA or of the chromosome will move to opposite ends of the cell. A protein band is then going to form in the center of the cell between the 2 copies of DNA and connected to the plasma membrane. And it's going to, that protein band is going to start to pinch the cell envelope together in the center of the cell. And essentially what happens is the cell pinches itself into 2 cells, and they're going to separate and become 2 completely new cells. The replication here is really very simple, and this is a process used by all bacteria to reproduce more cells. Because it is so simple and it basically is just the cell pinching in half, doubling time for microorganisms is relatively fast. We also call this generation time. So a generation is when you have doubled the number of cells compared to parent cells. So if I had 1 parent cell and I now have 2 daughter cells, that is a generation. As long as the environment remains favorable and conditions don't change or become adverse, doubling can continue constantly. And this is typically what happens in the laboratory inside an incubator where the temperature is maintained and organisms are provided with all the nutrients that they need. The length of generation time depends on the organism. So average is about 30 to 60 minutes. An organism can double itself. Shortest generation times can be anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes. For organisms living in the environment, can actually be months, but most pathogens have a relatively short generation time. They're able to double fairly quickly, more in the minutes range. So this is what some of those measurements look like. So in table A, image A here, you can see how doubling and the number of cells relates to other terms, like the number of generations. So we went from 1 cell to 2 cells. That's 1 generation. If we double again, that's 2 generations, and then 3, and then 4. So each time the cells double, we have a new generation. We can also represent this exponentially in the pink band there. This also corresponds to the graph in C. This represents exponential growth. So we start with 1, 2 to the 0 is equal to 1, 2 to the first power is 2, 2 to the second power is 4. So this represents exponential growth, and we can show these different values also exponentially. We can also display them logarithmically, and that's going to be important when we talk about log phase. Log phase is growth phase, and this corresponds to the graph in image B. So microorganisms display a typical growth curve. It's a very predictable pattern of how bacteria grow in a closed system in the laboratory. And we can measure this by following these steps listed here. We place a certain number of cells in a sterile liquid medium, and we incubate that liquid culture over a period of several hours. And we sample that broth at regular intervals of time and plate each one of those samples onto a solid agar media, and then count the number of colonies that are present at each of those times. And this helps us to understand the growth curve of this particular organism. So this image right here basically shows that process. We've inoculated a 500 ml flask, and then at regular intervals, we're going to sample that flask and plate that on a plate, and then count the number of colonies that are present. And then we do a little math and determine the total estimated population of microorganisms in the flask at that particular time. There are 4 stages in a normal microbial growth curve. The first stage is called the lag phase, and this is a very flat period of growth. Not much is happening here. It's very slow and flat because the organisms are new to that environment, and they need some time to adjust. They need a period of time to actually grow, synthesize nutrients, and then begin to divide. These cells, because they have not yet adapted to their environment, they're not multiplying at their normal maximum rate, so they need some time to recover and adjust. This could also be because the population of cells introduced to the medium is very small. So when we dilute the sample, it's hard to actually catch an organism there. We move from the lag phase to the log phase, and the log phase is the exponential growth phase. This is growth that is increasing geometrically or exponentially, and it will continue at that rate as long as the cells have the nutrients that they need and the environment is favorable. So waste production hasn't become toxic. The organisms have not exceeded the availability of the nutrients. Once we move from the log phase, we're going to enter the stationary phase. And in the stationary phase, we don't have any net growth happening. Birth and death rates are equal. So we have equal numbers of cells dying as we do new cells being formed. Cell division is slowing down because there are so many organisms in the medium that they've depleted the nutrients and the oxygen so much waste has been excreted by this time that it's beginning to pollute the environment. And then finally, we have the death phase. And at this phase, the cells begin to die at an exponential rate because of waste buildup. The environment has become toxic, and cells are reproducing at a rate that is lower than the number that are dying. And that is what this growth curve looks like. So you can see the lag phase at the beginning. The cells are adjusting to the new environment. They're growing, getting the nutrients they need. And then we have the exponential growth phase where they are growing, reproducing geometrically. Top of the curve is the stationary phase where we have equal numbers of birth and death, and then finally the death phase. So why is this important? How do we use this? Well, we can use our understanding of the growth curve in order to address disease and how to treat certain bacterial infections. Microbes in the exponential growth phase are more vulnerable to antimicrobial agents and to heat. So we can use this if we know where the organism is as far as its growth curve. We can treat it more quickly and more effectively. Actively growing cells are also more vulnerable to conditions that disrupt metabolism and disrupt reproduction, binary fission. A person actively shedding bacteria in the early and middle stages of infection is more likely to spread it than a person in the later stages. So if you are early on in that infection, those organisms are in that early exponential growth phase, and you are more likely to spread active living organisms to another person than if you're in the later stages. More of those organisms have already died. So we can also analyze bacterial populations without actually culturing them on a plate and counting the number of organisms present. And we can do that three different ways. First, we can measure the turbidity of a broth tube. Any clear nutrient solution becomes turbid or cloudy as microbes grow in it. And we have measures of turbidity using a turbidometer, using a meter to measure turbidity. We can compare how turbid a tube is or how cloudy it is, and then we can make estimates about the numbers of organisms growing in that tube. We can also count colonies by doing a direct cell count with a microscope, and we can place a specimen on a very small slide, and we can count individual organisms on that slide, and we can distinguish between an organism that's living and one that is dead. We can also use a culture counter, which electronically scans the fluid as you add it with a pipette through a little funnel, and it will scan the fluid and it will count the number of microorganisms that passes through that light beam. We can also use a flow cytometer. It works kind of like a culture counter, but it actually can measure the size of the cell, and it's able to differentiate between cells that are living and cells that are not. Finally, we can use genetic probing, and this uses a real-time PCR. We actually can quantify or put a number on the number of bacteria and other organisms that are present in tissue samples or environmental samples by looking at DNA sequences and the thickness of those bands. So the image on the left shows a direct counting the number of organisms directly with a microscope, and then the one on the right shows an example of a Coulter counter. And that is the end of mini lecture 6.3. Make sure you go through these questions and go back to the objectives slide. Make sure that you can do all of those things. And hopefully this video was helpful.